if you had to predict right now who you think will end up in the playoffs in the AFC with that final spot or two, who will it be?
Okay, well, first, let's just briefly mention the teams that have been officially eliminated, because there are a bunch of them.
No, we don't have to do that. That'll take time. Nobody.
No, I'm just going to mention them. Cleveland, Jacksonville, Jets, Tennessee, Patriots, and Raiders are all eliminated. So basically, we're looking at 6 teams still with the possibility of getting a wild card. Cincinnati at the bottom of 5-8. I felt that last week was the game that they had to win. I don't like their chances at all. Wouldn't be shocked by the upset against Tennessee, but I would see it the next one. Look, they were fortunate against Dallas the other night to even get the 5-8. Miami and Indianapolis both at 6 and 7, 2 games behind the 3 teams that are currently 8 and 5. Both of those have chances with the schedule. The game this week, Indianapolis at Denver, will be important because if Denver wins, they effectively eliminate Indianapolis from catching them.
And do you think that's what's going to happen?
That Denver's going to win this week?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that knocks the Colts out.
Yeah. It just knocks them out.
That just knocked the Colts out. So that means Miami would be the only team to catch Denver or the Chargers. And do you think Miami will or won't?
Or Baltimore, for that matter.
So do you think they will or won't? Miami.
I don't think they will because, could they catch? They have to win this week, I think, to still have a chance to get to 7 wins. I don't think they could catch. Well, right now it would be Baltimore and the Chargers. I don't think they could catch those 2 teams. Denver is the one that I'm not sure about. Denver would have 9 wins, and if Miami loses at 6, that would basically eliminate them.
Yeah. Even though Miami's schedule opens up after the Houston game, but still, it's asking a lot. I just don't like the way the Dolphins, unless Bradley Chubb finally gets back, he's close. He's been practicing. They just with Phillips out, they have not had a pass rush this season. I mean, they gave up, I think, 56 points in their last 2 combined games. And keep in mind, in the last game, you can say what you want, and I'm a Jet fan. You can say what you want about how good Aaron Rodgers looked, but he hasn't looked like that all year. And that's the Dolphins defense. So that's not good. It's not a good sign for the Dolphins.
They gave up 20 points. The 36 that they gave up was at Green Bay the week before. That wasn't a surprise. That was a game
they gave up 26 against the Jets or 28. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
32-26 overtime.
Yeah, they gave up 26 there because of the overtime there.
Do you agree, Jim? Miami is the team on the outs. Do you think it's going to be Denver, Chargers, and Baltimore as the last 3 in?
Well, what happens if the Chargers lose to Tampa this week?
I mean, they can possibly get within one of these teams can get within a game if they win. Colts, Dolphins.
See, the Chargers are pretty banged up, and Tampa's pretty damn good. Not that they don't have injuries of their own, but
keep in mind the Chargers will be playing Denver next week at home, but then their last 2 games are at New England and at Las Vegas.
Raiders, yeah.
Well, they should win those 2 if they're healthy enough.
And if they win those 2, I mean, it's going to be awfully hard for the Chargers.
Well, then they're 10 wins, so there are at least 10 wins. Yeah,
10-win team is going to get in.
But the game against Denver might not be that easy.
Oh, it won't be easy at all.
Yeah,
I mean, Knicks is playing. Knicks is
really
playing as well as anybody.
By the way, both Broncos and Colts are coming off byes for their matchup this week.
There's been a lot of play on the Colts this week against Denver, and I
saw that.
I don't agree with it. Although I understand, laying points with Denver might be, if you were saying who's going to win the game straight up, I like Denver a lot. But when you're talking about laying 4, it's, I like them, but that's not as appealing.
Well, let's see. They beat the Browns by 9 in that wild game. They beat the Raiders by 10. They beat the Falcons by 32. They should have beaten the Chiefs, but that would have been a 1-point game. Got blown out by the Raiders. Beat Carolina on this field by 14. Beat the Saints by 23. Lost to the Chargers and beat the Raiders by 16 at the start of the season. Back in October, they won a close game at the Jets in that horrible weather. Beat Tampa Bay by 19. Lost to the Steelers by 7 and lost in week 1. So when they win, they've basically been able to win by more than one score. But the question is Indianapolis, and I have to like the quarterback matchup favoring Bo Nix over Richardson.
Yeah, Richardson he can make spectacular plays and he can hit long. I mean, he can throw the ball through the stadium, but the fundamental game, he makes a lot of mistakes on those little 5, 10, 20-yard passes. He's very inaccurate.
If the Colts beat Denver and get within a game and hold a tiebreaker head-to-head, keep in mind the Colts' remaining 3 games this season are against Tennessee, Jacksonville, and the New York Giants.
Well, that's a cakewalk. Should be cakewalk.
Which ones of those are on the road?
Just one, and that's the Giants.
Yeah, and that's probably
the easiest.
The easiest win of the 3.
The Giants are tanking.
Yeah. So there you go. But again, that just shows you but can they win in Denver the way Denver's playing? I don't think so. I'm not worried about the points as well. Colts 1-4 ATS last 5. I just don't like, again, I don't think the kid
and I think
ready.
And I think the points they gave up to Cleveland and Jameis Winston and all that defensively was an aberration. That was not.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Well, the game against Cleveland, they should have never covered.
Yeah.
That was totally a fluke.
Well, that was the game with that weird ending that I think I remarked last week, that whoever lost that game would have had a bad beat because they were both they both had opportunities at the end to win and cover. Obviously,
exactly.
Denver needed to win by 6 or more, which they did, and Cleveland was in position to win or at least cover late in the game when they were down by 9.
Do you guys recall how many times? And again, you've wagered so often, but I really can't, as often as I've wagered in my life, I honestly can't recall any time. It might have happened once where my team had that late defensive touchdown to cover the spread. I've had that go against me about maybe 20 times in my life, but maybe 1 out of 20. I don't know what have you guys ever recall having a lot of luck over the years where you've had, not a lot, but 10%, 20%. I mean, I'm like at 1%, but I don't know what your average is at when you get screwed by that defensive touchdown or the defensive touchdown covers the spread for you.
I would have to think that it's happened. I can't recall any specific incident, but having done it for 40 plus years, I'd have to think it's happened a few times. But I'm still in the negative as far as bad beats are concerned. Usually bad beat often means you had the handicap right, you were on the right side, and even though it might have been close, there's a difference. And I watched the Scott Van Pelt segment on Bad Beats Mondays, and it's very entertaining, very enjoyable. But there's a difference between a bad beat and a tough beat. A tough beat is if a team's covering and then they're not covering because the other team scores at the end. That's a tough beat, but teams do that all the time coming from behind. I think Mort Olsham of the Gold Sheet a long time ago said 40 to 50% of all games are random outcomes to the extent that the final scoring play of the game reverses the outcome. A bad beat is when you are in position late in the game and you're probably close to a 95% favorite to just win that game because you're ahead. And let's say the opposition starts on like their own 3-yard line and ends up going down, which I think was the case with the Carolina-Philadelphia game, and goes down and wins in an improbable circumstance where they are probably like minus 1,500 not to score in that situation. So you're a huge favorite. That's a bad beat. And it usually has to occur very late in the game.
As a poker player, I played a lot of poker and a lot of my friends played professional poker. The bad beats are always not always, but most of the time are going to happen to the better handicappers, the better poker players, because they're in position. They've made the right choice. They've done the right handicap. They've played their hand well. And somebody does something dumb and they get away with it. It's usually the better handicapper or better poker player that suffers the most bad beats.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Hold'em, the final card. There might be a 2 in whatever number of cards are remaining, I guess, that you haven't seen, 2 in 35 or whatever it might be, depending upon the number of players. and one of those two cars shows up. And it was like, to get an inside straight or something with a 4.
All
exactly.
Right. NFC. And in just a couple of weeks, we talked about Seattle's 4-game winning streak, all as dogs. In just a couple of weeks, both Seattle and Tampa Bay have gone from the outs to the ins. And Seattle now has firm control in the West because they have that tiebreaker on Arizona. LA, though, the Rams came up with a big win last week. They're taking on San Francisco on Thursday night. So they need to win that one to kind of stay pace because they will be playing Seattle again. So that's to be a big one. Tampa Bay, meanwhile, is now taking the lead over Atlanta. Atlanta does now get back to easy football, though. So we'll see whether it's too late. Probably not. They have look, if they lose to the Raiders on Monday night, it's over. Tampa Bay, meanwhile, you talked about the big game they got coming up against the Chargers. But keep in mind, Tampa Bay, when they get done with the Chargers, they will be playing the Cowboys on the road, Carolina at home, and New Orleans at home. So they have 3 losing teams after the Chargers. That really benefits the Bucs. So first of all, before I ask
by the way, that means, by the way, what you just said, Tampa Bay controls their own destiny by winning out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the problem is playing Carolina is not a bargain right now.
No, not at all.
Very well. They're playing very, very well.
Unlike the AFC, only one NFC team has been officially mathematically eliminated, and that's the woeful New York Giants. Even Carolina at 3-10, at least for now, has a mathematical chance. It probably ends regardless of the result of Sunday's games, of this weekend's games, because some other team will probably win and make it almost impossible. Well, we'll make it impossible because Carolina won't be able to get the number of wins. In fact, Carolina, the best they can finish if they win out is 7-10, and right now there are only it looks like. I don't know why they're not eliminated, because they can't get more than 7 wins.
Well, Carolina's making the playoffs.
No, you know why? Because mathematically they still have a chance, I guess, to finish 7-6 if they win out and Tampa Bay loses, which is not going to happen. I think so. So for all intents, they are limited. But as Jim says, Carolina's playing some pretty good football right now.
Yes. And Carolina, matter of fact, I came this close. They were my 3rd team out of the 2 wise guy picks this week. I was actually going to take him against the Cowboys.
Look at the point spread.
Yeah, it's only 2.5.
Basically, the game opened picker -1. It's up to -3.
I was actually, the only thing I was concerned about, which is why I did not get him in as my top 3, just one little detail. They haven't been favored this year. And now they're the favored, and they're not good in the favored role. They have been a bad home favored role team. So, but I still like them. I like them a lot.
Well, sometimes you bet on a team, but sometimes you bet against the team they're playing.
Yeah, and I think the Cowboys, after losing last week, because last week they still had
the way they lost,
idea that they thought that they were going to actually still be in playoff contention.
They blocked the punt and lose the game
and lose possession. And then from a betting standpoint, the Cowboys couldn't even hold them to a field goal and only took 2 plays for them to go to 60 yards.
So
I had the Cowboys, and they should have covered that game.
There you go.
But
that's one of those bad beats.
They should have. And in fact, I said it before the punt. I said, you know what? There's only like a minute or so left in this game. The worst that should happen should be Dallas goes to overtime, but they should not attempt to block. They should attempt to set up a run back to increase field position. They still had timeouts, and all.
Why if they block the punt, 99 out of 100, they're getting the ball back?
It's still, I don't know that it's, well, okay. No, here's the thought. The thought is that if they scored, they might score too quickly. And Cincinnati, with their offense, might get the ball back instead, whether it was a touchdown or a field goal that Dallas got. My thought was Dallas should be in position where they end the game, either with a winning touchdown, or more likely a winning field goal, or the game goes to overtime.
And Aubrey can kick the ball about 70 yards, so you're thinking you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
So do you
remember it was 4th and 27. They were already going to get good field position.
Yeah, 4th and 20. So do you like Seattle to hold on and win the West, Jim?
Yes, I do.
Andy?
I still won't rule. The team that Ask me the
I'm not
question after
asking,
tomorrow. After tomorrow
What do
night's
you-
game between the Rams, because I still think the
Yes,
Rams have a chance.
Well, okay, and they play
Good
Seattle,
chance.
and they would own the tiebreaker. But I mean, what do you think right now today?
Well, I think the Rams
Not
are
a
going
chance,
to have
but who do you think will win
have
it?
a hard time with the Niners.
Yeah,
Because the Niners are. I mean, they've been.
I think the Niners got their win off. You were right on about the Niners last week, and it's going to carry over Thursday.
Who does Seattle play their final 3
The
games?
the problem is that the Rams had to really fight hard last week.
Yeah, but they have to. They're going to have to. They can't afford to lose.
Another one. I mean, the Niners had a cakewalk last week. It was almost having
the Niners needed a cakewalk. They're still injured. Matter of fact, what's the update on that? That's the key right there, Jim. Are the injured players? Are they getting Trent Williams back? Are they getting? Is Bosa going to be back?
I'm not sure that Trent Williams will ever play again.
All right, is Bosa going to be back?
No, I don't believe so.
Is Jordan Mason going to be back? Are they down to their 4th and 5th string running backs?
I believe San Francisco has lost both of those.
Yeah. So I can't see it. By the way, keep in mind this too. Since 2019, the dog in the Rams San Francisco series has won 8 out of the last 12, 10-1-1 ATS in those last 12, including week 3 when the Rams upset San Francisco as a 6-point dog at home.
I could see the Rams winning, and I'll tell you what, if they win tomorrow night, I think they do win the division. Here's what Seattle has to do.
Wow.
They host the Packers, okay? Then they host the Vikings. Then they're at Chicago outdoors, and it's probably going to be horrible weather back there. And then they're at the Rams to end the season. That game may decide the division right there, Rams and Seattle.
The problem with the Vikings is they have already clinched, and you're going to get these situations where teams that have clinched are going to start to relax. You saw it in the first half with the Bills last week, and then they woke up at halftime and started to play.
Well, the Vikings still have a chance to win the division because they play Detroit. I think they host Detroit the last game of the season. They've clinched a playoff spot, I believe.
Well, if Detroit loses this week, that opens up everything.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who holds the tiebreaker between the Vikings and the Lions if they end up tied at the end of the year, because that's a real possibility.
Okay, so
and by the way, Detroit could lose this week against Buffalo.
So
Tampa
Bay in the South or Atlanta?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt, Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
without
a
doubt.
Agree with that. Yeah.
Cousins cannot play anymore. He's done.
By the way, you want another additional reason why Baker Mayfield should be getting lower odds than 100-1 to win MVP? Do you know the only team that beat Detroit this year?
Tampa Bay. Too.
Baker and Tampa Bay. That's right. So another reason why
Baker with a team that's not nearly as good as some of these other teams that are supporting the MVP player. I mean, he's done an awful lot for the Buccaneers.
I just don't like the idea.
He's shown great leadership this year.
Yes,
I just don't like the idea nowadays with the MVP where they're giving it just solely on stats. It's like, again, we know Patrick Mahomes and Allen and all these guys are great. You can give it to them every year.
By the way, Greg, just as an aside, I know we were supposed to, if everybody was here, we'd talk about the Heisman. Did you want to spend a couple of moments?
No, we'll do that next week.
It'll already be decided by next week. It'll be announced.
We already talked college football.
Go
ahead and give us. Do you have anybody but Hunter?
No, I'm arguing against people. I'm arguing against the people who are making a case for Genty. A lot of people support him and all that.
Yeah, but you can do that
I would say in most years, but not when you have a player who plays both ways and plays as well as Hunter does both ways. That end of story.
What were we going to say, Jim?
Well, MVP. You're talking about Josh Allen. You're talking about Mahomes. You're talking about. You're talking about Goff. You're talking about players that are with very, very good teams and very, very good coaches, and they were expected to do well. When you talk about Baker, you're talking about a guy with a team that's very average, that was not even favored to win their division, and he's carrying them.
That's right.
He's the most valuable player.
That's what I think.
Will he get the votes?
No.
He won't.
No. Yeah, that's what I think. I do have to ask you guys though about because there was one play in that Bills Rams game before we move away from the Rams where first there were two. One was the refs not calling the illegal procedure on the Rams, but whatever. As you said, Jim, the other day, every game you get screwed. But what all Bills fans were talking about after the game was the decision by McDermott to call a timeout.
Awful.
First of all, was to I guess allow Brady, because he's the play caller, to call a run play because they have to communicate. So Brady's got to know, or McDermott has got to talk to Brady and say, by the way, do not call a run play here because I can't use my timeout. It's got to be a pass play. Obviously, there's no communication. Brady calls the run, the clock's running, and instead of calling another play, he calls a timeout and completely ends his chance of winning the game except an onside kick. So this is the reason why Bills fans don't believe they can win a Super Bowl with McDermott. And I think there's a serious possibility that if the Bills, let's say the Bills go out in the first round of the play, I think he's fired.
Wouldn't be shocked.
Well, they are tired. They are tired of wasting Josh Allen's talents and going out.
Yeah.
But if you lose to Kansas City every year, it's kind of like going up against Michael Jordan in basketball. I mean, you're going up against somebody that's really been good. Although I don't think the Chiefs are going to correct their problems and make it. I don't think they're going to make it this year.
And by the way, you're talking McDermott against Andy Reid. That's also somewhat of a mistake.
But if he goes against now this week, you're talking to him about going against Crazy Dan.
Yeah.
And he does crazy things, but those players love him.
Yep.
And he knows that he has to win these games with his offense because his defense is hurt.
Yeah, but he's been like, I just did an interview with Jeff Risdon, covers Detroit. He does a great job. It'll be available on the Our-Lads channel. We're also going to have an edited version here on Proline TV. And part of our discussion was exactly that. I asked him about or brought that up regarding the play. And yeah, Jeff agreed. He was like, look, just look what happened basically after that play. What they do when they got the ball back? Touchdown. What they do get the ball back? Touchdown. They respond to Campbell. They respond to his bravado. They respond to his gambling ways and the way that he doesn't gamble like an idiot. He just gambles sometimes when most people don't, and sometimes he makes it and sometimes he doesn't.
Well,
that's the way he's always been.
When you got all those players out on defense, you can't stop the other side. So you have to win the game with your offense. It's that simple. I mean, they had like 11. They had players on the field that game that had only joined the team the day before. I mean, give me a break. I mean, that was an amazing job. It really was.
All right. So NFC, it's down to Washington. First of all, before I move on, does everybody agree here that the Packers are going to the playoffs?
I agree.
They should, yes.
Okay. So it's down to Washington. So Washington's 8-5. You got the Rams a game back, unless the Rams can catch Seattle. So what you got here is Rams, Seattle, and Washington, because both the Rams and Seattle can make the playoffs. So you got, and then you also have the Falcons, which I think we all have given up on.
They're
Arizona and San Francisco's too banged up. So Arizona looks like the only team, correct me if I'm wrong, besides the Rams, that look like they have a chance to make the playoffs because of the fact that their schedule, as we talked about, is pretty easy, at least for the next 2 weeks. So what do you guys think? Will Washington hold on and make it, or will someone else take that 7th spot?
Now, let me see who Washington plays the rest of the way. They play. They still have a game at the Eagles at home next week against Atlanta, who they're contending against, and then at Dallas at the end of the season. So they. And
again, that Dallas game is not going to be easy.
No,
well, I think Dallas is done. I'm going to put a fork in them.
Well, we all thought they were done after that long losing streak, and they beat Washington.
they've only won one game at home this year.
Yeah, and that was
And,
that
yeah,
was against
and
the Giants.
now after that fiasco last week, Jerry's got to get his head out of his butt and make some changes. I mean, this team is a disaster. This is a team that, and Mike McCarthy, and you're talking about
he put
a lot
the team
of stuff
together,
going on
though.
down there.
Jerry's the one that put that team together.
Yeah, look at it.
Yeah.
When was the last time they went to the championship game, America's team? What, 27 years ago?
And you know why he doesn't make as many changes as you wonder, well, why doesn't he fire coaches, or why didn't he go out and sign all these players in the offseason? He had the quietest offseason of all the potential contenders. And it's because he believes he's a businessman, and he believes the Dallas Cowboys are being run beautifully because they have a market value like no other sports franchise.
Exactly.
And that's what he looks at as a success. So now it's the wrong way to think about it for football fans' sake, but
I'm going to say that with Derek Carr out and Taysom Hill out, Washington will win at New Orleans. I'll give them 9 wins. Let's assume they lose even at home to the Eagles. They could beat them, but let's say assume. Then they host Atlanta the following week. And I think that if they need to win to get to 10 wins and basically clinch a playoff spot, they will win that game because, and the Dallas game won't mean anything for the most part, other than possibly whether they finish with the 1, 2, or 3 wild card seed, because they may rest everybody knowing that they're going to have to play the following week in a wild card round. So I think wins over the Saints and the Falcons will have Washington in there as a playoff team. As far as teams ahead of them,
so that means you believe it's going to be Arizona. So you basically have already said that those are your 7 teams, the 7 teams that are in there right now.
No.
Seattle, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Green Bay, and Washington.
I have not conceded the West to Seattle yet. Remember, they are They are 8-5. Rams are 7-6. 49ers are 6-7. I'm going to say, and I know I have to make a pick here, but I'm going to say that Seattle misses out and that the winner of tomorrow's game between the 49ers and the Rams gets in there. Yeah, 49ers.
The 49ers?
They have the pedigree, and they know how to win. And if they win this game, that would be 2 nice wins in a row, although the win against Chicago, other than being
what kind
impressive.
Of odds do I have to give you?
Winning tomorrow night?
We may not be.
No. That the Niners don't make the playoffs.
We may not be giving the Niners enough credit for last week's win because of who they beat
and how they beat them.
I'm willing to not give them enough credit.
They had a meeting before that game where 2 players, Purdy being one of them, gave speeches to the team.
The most overrated deal in sports, the pregame speech.
Not always.
Yeah, when you win, when you don't, it doesn't.
I don't know. I guess we'll know after that game.
Well, we'll probably know tomorrow night. But I will say that the winner between San Francisco and the Rams.
I'm surprised you guys actually still think San Francisco has a chance.
Oh, I know.
They got to play the game.
Who has? Let me.
No, I'm not talking about the Ram game. I'm just talking about you have a chance to make the playoffs.
Let me come down to this question: who has the best kicking game of the 2?
Which 2?
Tomorrow's game.
No, I wasn't talking. I was talking about the playoffs.
No, I'm talking about that game.
Well, I wasn't talking about
pivotal that game. Because whoever has the better, it should be a very close game. And I'm trying to ask
who has the best kicking game between San Francisco. Well, San Francisco doesn't have a consistent kicker. That's for sure.
Pardon?
San Francisco doesn't have a consistent kicker. We know that. So I haven't studied their punter. Why do they have a good punter?
More about field goals than anything.
Yeah, no, Moody's very inconsistent.
I would give the edge most likely to the Rams between them and the 49ers only because of the schedule, although it may work out. The 49ers then are at Miami. Then they host the Lions in Week 17. We don't know where Detroit might be at that point. They may, but probably won't, have wrapped up the number 1 seed. And that could be very difficult, even though the game's in San Francisco based upon last year's championship game. And then they end the season at Arizona, which probably which could be a meaningless game for both of them. Probably more so for San Francisco than it might be Arizona, who still has a chance. But I'm gonna go with the winner of tomorrow's game. And in fact, if I had to pick, I'll say the Rams.
I just got to notice Belichick accepted the job at UNC.
Oh, did he? Wow. Does he know those wins don't count against the NFL record for most wins?
And he said he's going to build a NFL-style team where the players are primed to go to the NFL, and he's going to teach them how to eat, how to exercise, how to behave. He's going to teach them to be NFL
He didn't mention how to win, though.
college.
He didn't mention how to win. He didn't mention teach them how to win.
Well, that's not, again, what he's going to do is, and it's very, and I'm not surprised that you're saying that, Jim, because of the fact that, he's very good friends with Greg Schiano. And Greg Schiano, that's what he does at Rutgers. And he makes sure that the players, he has a real good coaching staff. And all he preaches to his recruits are, you come here and I'm going to get you ready for the NFL. And that's why they come, because that's what they're there for.
And they're gonna go to, players are gonna want to play for Belichick.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that should be very interesting. They were comparing Bill.
I mean, I'm not making that up. That's what he said on television.
No, sure. Yesterday. I can imagine that. Like I said, yeah. Because his son was the coordinator for, he was not coordinator. He was an assistant coach for Schiano before he became the coordinator. I forget where he is right now. I think he's still in the conference. Belichick. No, Belichick's the defensive coordinator for Washington, the Huskies.
Yeah.
So they have this great relationship. He even had Belichick come and talk to the team a couple of years ago. So it's exactly what he's doing. He's doing exactly what Schiano's doing, is let me convince these kids to come here, and I am going to show them how to become professional football players.
It's very smart. And there's no reason why he should try to go back to the NFL and repeat what he did. This is kind of good money, more relaxed.
Yeah.
And building kids up from the ground up to get into the end. It's perfect.
It could be very, very satisfying for the way that he would end his career. He's got a great personal satisfaction out of that. My only question is, how will 18 and 19 years old respond to his tough taskmasking?
Well, I don't know how tough he'll be.
That's his girlfriend.
Kids, but he's going to marry a girl that's a college, basically a college student.
Yeah.
She's 50 or 60 years younger than him.
Good for him, man.
Good
for him.
God bless him.
Yeah.
I guess, by the way, quick question on that. Before we wrap up, I want to just go over some of these games. So again, tomorrow night, Rams, San Francisco. Are you surprised that San Francisco is favored?
No, not because they're home. No.
Okay.
Neither team, neither one of these teams is very good. They're about equal. And when you look at the injuries throughout the year,
well,
it's even more so about equal. I mean, for Christ's sake, CMC only played like 2 games or part of 2 games the whole year. I mean, now Trent Williams, the left tackle, is gone. He may never play again. I mean, tragedy in his life. The baby died. He's injured.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's been a rough year.
I don't think he's hurt.
Well, maybe not.
He's been banged up.
But he may never play again.
No, what I'm saying is I think he's banged up. I don't think it's because of the physical. I think he needs a timeout. And
emotionally,
you have to give him a timeout. I think if they were in the playoff race, like a serious playoff race, he'd be playing.
I think another reason for the 49ers being favored is they basically had a bye last week, and the Rams were pushed to the limit in their win.
Yeah, I mean, basically, once Buffalo woke up, Buffalo owned that game.
Oh, they were down 38-21.
Yeah, they were down.
I'm gonna try to get into your head here, Jim. So let's see. So I know this isn't easy to do. So let's see. So last week, one of your big plays was Chicago over San Francisco. Okay, so last week
I was wrong.
No, look at my television. I'm just okay. So then you also like the Rams over the Bills last week.
I did, and I won.
Now this week, the two teams are playing each other. You like the Rams against the Bills. They beat the Bills like they're one of the best teams in the NFL. And you said that they would do that because they were trying to get to the playoffs, and it was an important game, biggest game of the year. Here's San Francisco, the same banged up team they were last week. That's the reason you didn't like them, because they were banged up. And now you've switched, And now you like San Francisco.
Well, as doing this for 6 decades.
I'm really serious about this. This is important to know.
Handicapping sports is not a linear progression. You're dealing with human beings, human frailties, and you're dealing with coaching and mismatches and situations. The problem is Chicago allowed the Niners to have the week off because it was so easy.
Yeah.
Where the Rams they had their, cogliones in the vice in the second half. You're playing a much better Buffalo team that was celebrating off of winning the AFC East Division, came in and didn't even play in the first half and almost caught them and beat them. If the game was another quarter long, Buffalo would have won that game.
And by the way, remember,
the Rams got a
Sunday night
off.
win. Buffalo's win the week before was against these 49ers.
In the snow.
Yep. That's another reason to go with the Rams. So go ahead. No, but tell me then again, I'm serious. So why?
Okay, the game opened 2. The game opened 2, and the money has come in on the Niners. So I'm not the only one that's crazy. It's up to 3.
Yeah,
it opened 2.
Even better.
So my point is, there's other big bettors that have moved the number from 2 to 3 because the average Joe doesn't bet early.
And why is that though?
Because
it can't just be because the Rams are exhausted.
Because of what I just said.
Yeah. Is that the Rams are exhausted and San Francisco is not? They're
equal teams with one team more rested than the other.
Okay. Interesting. I've never looked at it that way, but I'm not an expert
handicapper. Andy, you be the arbiter here.
I was going to say,
he likes the Rams. So.
Well, I'm going to give you one reason why I do like the Rams: McVay versus Shanahan.
Has he had his number?
I know he's well. And by the way, these are basically for both of these teams, Arizona and even all 4 teams are basically playing playoff games the rest of the way out to make it into the playoffs. Only one team's going to get in from this division. I can't see one of the others getting a wild card. Rams last year, remember, they went 6-1, I think, down the stretch. They know they can do it. They know they can win these big games. San Francisco last year was barely pressed for most of the season. So we've got a Rams team, and they showed it last week against a game that they were underdogs in and playing maybe the second best team or third best, depending upon where you rank Buffalo with Detroit and Philadelphia, really, I guess you got to throw Kansas City in there, but basically one of the top 4 teams in the NFL, and they managed to hold on. They took control early, and then, Buffalo being the kind of team that, does have the ability, came back. So the Rams are playing with the knowledge that they know they have to win this game, and they know that they can beat this team.
All right, so that's Thursday night.
I mean, these are basically equal teams, so they know they can beat anybody that's equal to them.
The only thing
is that if the 49ers win 27-14, I won't be shocked.
No, I wouldn't be shocked either. I think the only thing that I just think right now, I can't say they're even teams because San Francisco is just nobody's more injured than San Francisco is right now.
Yeah, remember the Rams had to play without their 2 wide receivers for a few games as well.
No. Today in the game.
Oh yeah, right.
Nobody is more. You put them in this game. I mean, just a long list of guys that are out not playing.
Rams are the healthier team entering this game. If you want to put it.
Greg. Even though I'm making an argument like a college debate team here, I have not bet either side of this game.
That's okay. I mean, this is what these shows are for.
What's got me confused about the game. Well, I know who bets. Okay, I talk to a lot of people.
Sure, but they're not 100%.
Somebody put a lot of money to raise this game from a 2 to a 3, and I'm not going to just disqualify that.
Yeah, but I mean that happens in games every week. I mean, there's a ton of games.
It really depends
more than a point.
Depends on the quality of the bettor that makes me hesitate.
And also, maybe I wonder if it was a reaction to what the 49ers did last week and how much more sure-handed, if at all, will this 49er team be than last week's 49er team against the Bears? Are they didn't lose anybody that I'm aware of that they did.
No, I don't think so.
They were without last week, but are they getting anybody back that they didn't have last week?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to be tough for San Francisco, because when you got a whole bunch of guys injured, you can come out one time and everybody's dissing you, and you're all banged up and your season's over, and then you rally, like you said, Jim. You get the speech and you rally and you go out and you kick their ass, but that only usually lasts a game. That, in my experience, that lasts like a game.
It didn't even last a quarter for the Bears, who were in that situation.
Yeah, they were out
last
of it in
week.
a quarter. Yeah.
No. But I'm saying that they had a new head coach who they liked, the interim head coach. They got rid of the guy they couldn't stand for all the bumbles, and that historically, if you had bet on new coaches in that type of situation, you're winning more than losing. That game was never never close. So I mean, maybe that says more about the talent on Chicago. Although I like the Chicago team as far as the talent goes, but it was a situation that you would have. Maybe they don't win the game last week, but you expected a much more competitive effort, especially early in the game, and they never showed that. And maybe that shows something about San Francisco's resiliency, saying, "Hey, we know everybody's counting us out. We know we've got everybody out. We're still a good football team. John Lynch has put a good team together on the field, and now it's a time for the backups to come in and show that they deserve to be on this roster, because they might be in a needed situation, and now they are in a needed situation, and they will. Now, can they sustain that? We'll find out a little bit about that tomorrow night.
I think this game's going to be a war. You've got two decent coaches. I prefer the Rams coach. I prefer McVay. I prefer Stafford over Purdy, although I think Purdy's very good. Stafford is definitely a step up. Other than that, I mean, the left tackle being out, you can see a Rams having an edge there. The home field advantage usually in the pros is not that high anymore. You are going to possibly be playing in rain. That is a possibility, because there is some weather on the West Coast. That could affect the Rams because they are an indoor team. The other thing is, I remember, in this painfully, the Rams were at home against Miami and looked like crap. And they were at home against Philadelphia and they looked like crap.
Yeah, well,
so there have been moments this year where the Rams have really looked bad.
Like San Francisco, the 2 weeks prior,
the same way. Both of these teams have had off years.
Yeah,
this is, there's no.
Yeah, these aren't two really good football teams. Yeah,
no,
like you
not.
said. Yeah,
we might as well talk about
they're talented but missing too much. Both teams.
Yeah, they've had some rough.
I mean, Stafford had a really good game. The question is,
Stafford's amazing when he's right.
Is he going to be able to keep that going? That's the question.
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
The other thing is, the Rams' running game has improved over the last few weeks. They're now over 100 yards per game. They were down around 90-something about a month ago. So they've actually been able to increase that, which I think helps a lot, especially when you've got those two receivers.
Yeah, and San Francisco, again, they're down to their fourth and fifth and sixth string running backs who will be playing in the game. So
probably the biggest injury that I would worry about is Trent Williams, left tackle. That's a huge, and people don't realize what a big difference. And he's probably, arguably, the best left tackle in football, and that is a huge problem. So, but still, I worry about. I know that money came in. I know who took the bet that moved that number from 2 to 3, and it bothers me.
Okay, well, I guess we'll find out. That's tomorrow night. And again, we'll keep an eye on the weather as well, because again, like Jim said, that could definitely be an impact, because we said the same thing about Seattle's weather. They're both not too far.
What do you think about the total, Andy?
I would go under, even though I'm not a total guy.
I didn't come up with much on the total. What's it at right now? It's 40-something, 49, 48? No, it's a little lower, I think.
Did Victor put out a total on this game that we know of?
No. I didn't get to read his letter, but I would think, given the situation, I think both teams are going to try to run the ball a lot and on short pass. So I would probably think under.
All right, let's go ahead and run through with our remaining time the rest of the games of note. Even though it seems like Cincinnati are still considered, I guess, long shots to get in. But here's a big trend in the Cincinnati game, care of Playbook Sports Magazine, and that is that the Bengals have covered 16 straight games as a non-division favorite of 3 or more when they're coming off an NFC game. And they're 3-0 in that spot this year. So 16, and by the way, they're 4-0 straight up ATS as a favorite on the road this year. Tennessee 0-2 straight up ATS home dog this year. So Cincinnati trying to hold on for their little hope when they travel to Tennessee. Dallas, Carolina, 2.5-point favorite. Panthers have covered 5 straight, but it's their first favorite roll this year. The 3-11 ATS, last 14 is a home favorite. Do we all agree that Carolina is to play here?
Well, here's the. Let me explain there. This is another money situation. I bet Panthers when it came out. I got it at pick and I got it at -1. Now it's 3.
Yeah.
And I know who moved the number. I know who moved the number because I spoke to him on the phone. And a lot of money on the Panthers. A lot of money came in on the Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't play Dallas. It's just a question of do I want to play Carolina? If I had to play, I'd play Carolina even at the 3.
So I'm gonna.
It's really, Andy. It's really a money line bet.
Yeah, money line play mostly. Yeah, I just think Carolina has shown the last few weeks, especially last week against Philadelphia, they have not quit on the season, and that's something you have to look for. Look at Tennessee last week. They ended up losing that game to Jacksonville. When you give up 10 points, as Tennessee did last week, you're supposed to win those games, and you're supposed to win it by probably more than one score. There's a team that I think that they've. Now we'll see what happens with Cincinnati reacts after their close call last week. But Carolina's a team that I can understand why people might be betting on them the rest of the way, especially if they show again and get a win this week.
Well,
the thing about this part of the season, especially when you have 10 or 11 teams with really negative seasons, 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins. Out of all the games that have been played, I mean, you really have to start looking at who's quit and who's just looking at next year. And I mean, for example, the Giants. I mean, are they even trying to do anything?
Yeah,
it's a whole different handicapping method to get through this part of the year.
Well, we'll find out if Dallas is going to quit because they looked like they were quitting and then they got back into it. Now they've lost again, so I think we're in agreement that this is probably their last chance to see if they've quit yet on the season again.
Yeah, I can't remember any time. Now we've got a 17-game schedule, 4 games left. I can't remember any time, even in these few short years that we've had the 17 games, where as many as 6 teams have been mathematically eliminated with basically a month to go in the season from making the playoffs, especially with an additional team now making the playoffs up from 6 to 7. So, and I'm talking now in the AFC. The NFC is a lot, still a lot, but 6 teams in the AFC playing out the string right now.
All right, so I'm going to start to jot this down now. This is a new number I'm going to jot down every week. I'm going to call it Jim's top players. So Jim's got – so these are like Jim's little secret contacts who put in tons of money and moved the line.
I didn't bet the Niner Ram game. Please
I said Jim's top players, not plays, players. So
now you have to identify them as Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, Mr. D.
Yes, okay. Jim, can you do that? So San Francisco will be Mr. A.
No, that's Mr. C.
Oh, you're gonna go by their last names, and then
Carolina. No, it's not by their last name.
Who's Carolina? How are you?
I like that, Greg. I like the conclusion you came to there.
And who's Carolina?
I was thinking A, B, C, D, and you said
Carolina is by Mr. A. Mr. A is the biggest bet of the week.
All right, Mr. A and Mr. C. We got Carolina, San Francisco. We'll see if Jim has any more from his players as we roll through. Now,
keep in mind the lines for Mr. A and Mr. C are a lot better than we see now. So you've got to use the lines that they betted at.
That is correct. These are people that bet numbers.
Yeah, but all right. So what we'll do is So the number of San Francisco was what at the time?
2.
And it was Pick'em, Carolina.
Picker 1.
All right, so we'll do
that player is most likely he would bet mostly money line plays. He wouldn't lay anything.
I'm guessing the bet may have been made after the Monday night game where Dallas lost the way they did, because I think Dallas was actually on Sunday when they opened it up a 1-point favorite, and when they reposted it on Tuesday morning because they take it down for the Monday night game.
You are correct. You are correct.
All right. So, but again, we're going to do this in two different ways.
I'll give you one more play.
Well, we're not. Well, let's go through the games, and you can pick it out.
Okay.
So, but keep in mind that this is going to be done in two different ways because Mr. C got him at 2, but the public is getting 3. So let's say if the game is won by 3, Mr. C's got to win, the public's got to tie. That's the way we have to do it. All right. So now let's move on. Jets in Jacksonville. Jets a 3-point favorite. I got to believe Mac Jones has a really good history against the Jets because I don't recall as a Jet fan ever beating Mac Jones, which is a really sad thing to think about.
Well, Mac Jones was always coached by Bill Belichick when he faced the Jets.
But still. Jacksonville 2-0-1 ATS is a home dog this year. 5-1-1 ATS in their last 7. I can't see Jacksonville winning 2 straight. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if you guys have anything on that one.
And I believe the line is 3.5 right now. I can certainly see Jacksonville winning this. Look, they won last week without on the road with a lot of players that are not going to be playing this week as well.
Okay.
This is not a game I looked at. I am kind of isolating, staying away from teams that I can't quite figure out what the hell they're doing.
Washington and New Orleans. Washington a 7-point favorite, and New Orleans has won 3 out of 4. Washington, meanwhile, coming off their bye.
Barr's out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so is Taysom Hill.
And Hill is out.
Yep. So that's why this is number 7.
Teaser game for Washington.
And New Orleans 2-11 against the spread is a home dog of more than 1 since 2021. 1-3 in that spot this year. Washington's got Philly on deck. Either one of you guys have a pick either way here convincingly?
Only a teaser. Washington. That's all I could do. I can't bet Washington laying that number. Yeah. But I would if I'm going to play a teaser, I'd play Washington in a teaser.
Miami, Houston favorite by 3. Houston just 4-12-1 in their last 17 as a home favorite. Also just 1-10 ATS home versus losing teams in their last 11. 0-2 in that spot this year. Miami, meanwhile, have not been playing all that great defensively in their last 2. They would have been on a 2-game losing streak if they would have lost that game to the Jets last week. But I just can't take Houston when Houston just can't cover at home as a home favorite.
Are you showing 3 or 3.5?
Well, again, could be either. So what are you going to go with? You guys like a strong play either way here?
Not a strong play, but I would definitely lean to Miami at 3.5 because I think these teams are kind of marginally. They're having regression years, and you got to remember that Tua was out for quite a bit this year, and that made their record look a little bit worse than it is. They're not good. They're not great. They're okay. But Houston's having an off season. The rookie quarterback is not having the season he had last year. So I'd take the dog here with the 3 and a hook.
Kansas City, Cleveland.
Yeah, by the way, I'm with Miami as well. If the line goes to 4, they might make a teaser play because you would get a key number of 10 in there. I don't know that I would do it at 3.5 unless you did a 6.5 pointer, but which I normally don't do. But again, and Jim mentioned a very important thing. Tua's missed 4 of their 13 games. That's a third of a season basically. It skews their stats and their record a lot. And they lost. Remember those 2 games that when Tua came back, they were high-scoring games. They lost, I think, on the last play to Arizona, 28-27, and the following week 30-27 up in Buffalo when Buffalo kicked the late field goal. So Miami, when you throw in the 4 games that Tua didn't play and those 2 close losses where he played well in his return, Miami is a better team than they show. Houston can't really say that they've had a lot of key injuries this year. But what the Jim said about Stroud is definitely true. Now they are coming off a bye. How much of a difference I can't say. But it's also an important game for Houston because they have to hold off Indianapolis, and I believe they will not know because Indianapolis plays a later game at Denver. I think those teams could be a 1-game difference between those teams if Indy wins and Houston loses.
Kansas City at Cleveland. The Chiefs are now 0-7 against the spread in their last 7. They're a 4-point favorite here.
This Cleveland, is a game from 6 or 6.5 down to 4.
Yeah.
It's you probably have to bet the game over because if Jameis Winston is the quarterback, and I believe he's going to play. They've talked about going to the his backup. I don't think they're going to do that. But Jameis has a tendency to score for both teams. So he makes it exciting. It's fun to watch him. But, if the game was 6, which I did not bet it, I missed the boat on. I probably should have taken the 6. I'm not gonna run after the bad number, but I favor. The other thing is Cleveland. I looked at the weather. There's some potential bad weather there. If it's as bad as it can be in that stadium, because it's right along Lake Erie, and it can get nasty there, wind and rain and snow and all that stuff, I would favor Cleveland because they have a decent roster. And Kansas City is very disappointing. Their offensive line is not protected.
What are they? 11-1?
Yeah, but it's the way
I know. It's just so hilarious that we're saying
plus 56 points.
I know that.
11-1.
I can't wait till the day comes when my team
by the way,
is
12-1.
11-1.
12-1.
I can't wait. 12-1. I can't wait till the day that my team is a disappointing 12-1. I may never live that long. I'm going to be on Kansas City this week. I think they are sick and tired of hearing about all these close games, and I think they're now in a position to say, hey, we only got 4 games left. We want to go into this postseason the way we went into the season last year. Cleveland's coming off of 3 tough games in a row, the 2 games against Pittsburgh and the game against Denver in the middle. They're out of it officially right now. I think Kansas City goes in there, takes care of business. We see more of the bad Winston than we see the good Winston. I think Kansas City wins this game, and it might even be comfortably. All right. I'm taking the Browns to win the game outright. I'm going to go the exact opposite. I think this is one of those games that the Chiefs, everybody believes the Chiefs can't do no wrong. They keep winning. They're going to keep winning. And but maybe the Chargers can upset them or maybe they could upset. But this week, everybody will go, of course, they're going to beat Cleveland. And then this is the week they're going to lose. So I'm going to go ahead because look at the Browns. They've beaten the Ravens and the Steelers at home this year. They're 7-3-1 ATS. The last 11 is a home dog. Look, obviously, I'll take the 4 because the Chiefs will probably find a way to win the game by 1. But
the only thing with Cleveland now is they were playing these last several games with desperation.
Yeah, but you're playing the Chiefs.
Desperation's out of the window now.
But you're playing the Chiefs. You're playing
they're
the
looking
world
to stay home.
champs.
They're looking to stay home for Christmas and not get injured.
No, I don't think so.
By the way,
I don't think the Browns ever thought they were making the playoffs. But
no, neither did I.
Well, not when you're averaging only 89 yards per game on the ground. That's something.
So Andy's going to go against the 0-7 ATS last 7. All right.
It's got nothing to do. It's got nothing to do with the 0-7. It's got to do that this is a spot for Kansas City to start getting ready for the playoffs, especially after the last 2 games.
Next up, Baltimore Giants. Boy, if there's a game that you probably think about the same thing you just said there, Andy.
I took 16.
Yeah, you might as well give 25.
I think Tommy DeVito, who's going to be starting this week, will throw 4 touchdown passes, 1 to the Giants, 3 to the Ravens.
That's because Mama is going to make some lasagna and bring it into the clubhouse.
It is. It's the highest. It's the highest line of the season. It's really hard to make a case for the Giants, except for the number. But you do have to wonder how DeVito is going to perform against a Baltimore team that I think Giants can't. Even with the players, who knows about Neighbors' availability? The Giants don't have much of a passing game.
Suck.
This could be a game where Baltimore's pass defense finally gets to face a team that they can have success against, and that's something
play their backups.
Need. Well, they're gonna need to have improvement on that defense, the pass defense, if they have any hopes of advancing beyond the wild card round.
And that's not going to happen. I don't think they have a chance to change their defense. They are what they are. They're not going to be able to win. They're not going to be able to go very far this year.
I really think the handicap in this game just depends on how much Harbaugh wants to press his team to push and risk injuries and stuff. I mean, they're going to run the ball. They're going to eat up clock. It's going to be one of those.
Baltimore does have the Giants, the Steelers rather, up next week.
And that's a huge game to look forward to.
Speaking of the Steelers, they're at Philadelphia. The Eagles are right about 5. Pittsburgh at 2-1 on the money line. Phillies won 9 straight. Pittsburgh 7-1 in their last 8. And how about this? Head coach Nick Sirianni has never lost against the spread, 9-0 all time, off back-to-back straight up ATS wins. Actually, I think that's I think that is. I think that's either him or it's the opponent. I'll have to double check that.
Could be
Tomlin. You get that right
because
here.
He does very well as an underdog, at least. So
You get all that information right here at Playbook Sports Magazine, and it's right here in the corner, and it's the opponent off back-to-back straight-up ATS wins. So he's 9-0 all-time, 2-0 this year, I believe, in that same spot. What do you guys think about this one? This is one of those big games that will be on at the same time as Detroit and Buffalo, at the same time as the Chargers and Tampa. They've got all these great games all at the same time.
Unbelievable.
And it's so ridiculous. But anyway,
I think the lines maker, I think, put up his hands and said, I don't know what to do with this game. Let's put it in between a field goal and a touchdown. Let's make it that 5.5 and see which way the public moves this game. I like Pittsburgh in this game.
There's something. You remember last year when Philadelphia just took off like a rocket, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year, there was something. That kind of stuff is going on again. I'm hearing all this.
You're talking about the Graham comments about the Smith and the relationship between him and Hurts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm very concerned about that.
This is
whose relationship? Hurts and
quarterback and receiver. And
this clubhouse and rumor. I mean,
Devonta Smith.
Wide receiver, yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on with this team. Why they did it last year. They're doing it again.
You know what that means?
Pittsburgh,
the next time they lose.
You want to talk about coach of the year? How about you talk about Mike Tomlin?
Yeah.
What he's doing there is remarkable. They're going to come in there to play. This is a tough. I don't see how you can give this team 5.5, 6 points, 5 points. I don't get it. Maybe 3, but not this. The line's too high.
Pittsburgh has a really tough end of the season schedule. They're at Baltimore on Saturday. Then they host Kansas City on Wednesday. And then they host Cincinnati to end the season. Philadelphia at Washington, host Dallas, host the Giants. So that's an edge right there to the Philadelphia Eagles schedule-wise. They could afford to lose this game, that's for sure. New England and Arizona. Arizona's a 4.5-point favorite. And
down from 6, by the way.
Both, I wonder why anybody would do that. But
maybe that Arizona, was Mr. B.
Arizona and New England have lost their last 3 games, but the difference is New England has lost their last 3 games to losing teams. Arizona's lost their last 3 games to teams with records of 500 or better. Arizona 4-0 straight up and against the spread versus losing teams this year. I believe they're going to make it 5-0. And I'll go ahead and give the 4. What do you guys think?
I didn't have any opinion on this game.
Andy?
Well, they burned me last week against Seattle. They still have a shot to win the division, possibly make a wild card, though that's doubtful. New England, I give them some effort for some game performances they've had in recent weeks, but I do think Arizona gets healthy this week.
Buffalo
and the number, and as I mentioned, the number has come down. So they
Buffalo
are betting New
at
England.
Detroit. Detroit's a 1.5. Is that still 1.5? Detroit 1.5 over Buffalo.
I saw 2 a little earlier today.
So a lack of respect there for the Lions to be only a 1.5, 2-point favorite at home. But the Bills trying to avoid a 2-game losing streak. Bills are 1-2 straight up and against the spread as dogs this year. Detroit, meanwhile, on an 11-game winning streak. Head coach Dan Campbell, all-time 29-10-1 against the spread when he faces teams with a 500 or better record. Who do you guys like?
I'm looking at the under in this game, surprisingly enough. We know the I think it's 50-51, something like that.
I think it's higher than that, Andy.
Oh, you know, maybe it's 53. Maybe that's the number that I first thought. I think
we're looking at 54.
Wow.
54.
Both of these teams, they rank 1 and 2 in points. Detroit 32.1 and Buffalo 30.5. But look at their numbers defensively. 20.6, that's number 8 for Buffalo, 18 for Detroit. So while the offense is getting a lot of credit, the defensive numbers have been pretty consistent. The other thing I like, and this is where we could see teams march down the field and turn it over, although the defenses have been really good. Buffalo, only 7 turnovers lost. Detroit, only 12. defensively, Buffalo's forced 24 and Detroit has forced 20. So you've got the immovable object against the impenetrable force with offense and defensive turnovers. Both teams very good, especially Detroit at running the ball. And Detroit's very good at defending the run this year, not so much against the pass, but they're very good. I really can't pick a winner in this game. Maybe if I did anything, I could tease Buffalo up through, especially if it goes back up to 2, because I think there'll be some play on Detroit. But I think I'd play the under in this game before I would play either side.
53.5, 54 is the number right now.
And may even go higher.
Jim,
until there's buyback.
I have to go with who I think is. I mean, the momentum. The injuries on Detroit's defense really bother me, but I'm going to stick with Detroit. And not a very, it's not a super play because of those injuries, but I like Detroit.
By the way, another reason I do like the under, and this is something to consider. How's the best way to keep the other team's prolific offense off the field? You run the ball. You don't have a lot of time. You have more time run off between plays. Both of these teams run. 151 per game for Detroit, 126 per game for Buffalo. So they both have the ability in Detroit, especially with those two great running backs, Gibbs and Montgomery. So I think we see a shortened game only because it's kind of like the Kansas City thing. You don't want the other team to have the ball as much as possible because they are so good at scoring.
Well,
Excellent point.
Keep in mind, then, you need to pay attention to, just like last week, we talked about it, that one of the biggest issues might not have been the defensive injuries, but the left tackle injury. And that's what you saw last week with Decker out. They could not run the football. And so keep an eye on Decker. If Decker's not in there, Detroit's going to have a hard time running the football again. And also keep in mind on the fact that both starting defensive tackles might not play for Detroit, which would mean that Buffalo would have a much easier time running the football. So keep an eye on those injuries on both sides of the ball. As far as Andy's point, that running the football is going to be a big potential outlier in this one.
It should be part of the game plan. Could be affected by who plays. It should be
Indy and Denver, we talked about. This is a huge one in the AFC playoff picture. Indy has got an easy schedule after this. So if they can pull off the upset, all of a sudden Indy might be looking as the team to get to that final playoff spot. But the line is 4, I believe, for Denver. They've won
I saw some 3.5s in there.
There are some.
They've won 3 straight up ATS. Indy's won 2 out of 3, but just won 4 ATS last 5. I like Denver in this one. They're just better than Indianapolis. It's a home game. They both need it. I'm taking the Broncos. What do you guys think, Andy?
I like Denver. They've got a 2-game edge over Indy, so a win here would give them a 3-game edge and a tiebreaker advantage. And of course, that means should they end up in a tie, it would go to Denver for the wild card. That doesn't eliminate Indianapolis from making a wild card, but keep in mind that the other 2 contenders right now also have 8 wins, so they could either remain or fall another game behind. So
they're right.
Basically, and because Denver is tied with the Chargers and Kansas City can't be caught in the division, it's also a critical game for Denver because a loss there hurts their wild card chances. And again, for the same reason, even though they'd still be a game ahead, should they end up tied with the Colts would have the tiebreaker edge. I think Denver's the better team. I think they've got the better quarterback, and I think they've got a better defense. And playing up high in Denver, I think, is also an advantage. So I think that asking them to cover this number, which they've done several times, I think I went with their margins earlier. I talked about it. I like the Broncos.
Andy said it 100% correctly. In my opinion, you got the coach, you got the quarterback who's playing better than the other quarterback. You got Mile High, you got potential weather. You always have potential weather in Denver. You never know, from 10 minutes it changes every 10 minutes. So, and you got an indoor team playing outdoors in cold weather. That's always an edge. I think that you've got a head coach that's a Super Bowl coach that against a younger coach that's made some mistakes this year, although I think he has a lot of potential going down the road. So all those reasons.
You just lowered my 100% by about 50% because you made the good points. I did not mention the coach. I did not mention the cold weather, and I did not mention one other thing that you brought up as well in the analysis. You just added to it. Very,
all
very
right.
distinctly
And then
too.
another big game that'll be lost within all the big games on Sunday at 4:00 is Tampa Bay and the Chargers. Chargers are a 3-point favorite at home. Tampa Bay's got that easy schedule after this. So if they can win this game, they are pretty much looking really good to win the South. Chargers, meanwhile, 1-2 in their last 3. So you know they're going to want to get back on the winning side. Check this out, though. Both teams go into this one in a good spot trend-wise. Tampa Bay has covered 9 out of 12 as a road dog, and the Chargers are 8-1 straight up ATS as a favorite. So that's this year. So they are a really good favorite role team this year.
I'm surprised at that. I didn't know that.
So Chargers 3, Tampa Bay.
This is a hard one. I mean, I got to, just for the hell of it, I got to take the dog. Baker and Herbert, they're both great. I think they have tremendous. Herbert's gonna. I mean, that's going to be a good football team down the road. They're banged up a little bit. They got Harbaugh there. This is going to be, the Chargers are going to be one hell of a football team starting next year. Very competitive. Denver and the Chargers could easily challenge the Chiefs next year to take that division.
Yeah.
I would take the point, but it's a marginal. It's not a big play.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at the other side here. If you look at Tampa Bay, they had lost 4 straight games to a quality team, the Ravens, and then they lost to the Falcons, lost to a quality team, the Chiefs, and a so-so team in the 49ers. Then they had their bye week, and their last 3 wins over the Giants, over the Panthers, over the Raiders. On the other hand, you mentioned about the Chargers. Their 2 losses came against elite teams in Kansas City and Baltimore, as far as that goes. So I'm willing to overlook. I'm going to use a horse racing analogy. As much as I do like Tampa Bay, this is a drop in class for the Chargers compared to who they've just played and lost to, and a rise in class for the Buccaneers. So I've got to lay the short price with the Chargers here again in a game that they need to keep winning to maintain their hold in the AFC. They can't win the division title. Tampa still can win the division title, and who knows what happens if the Falcons lose to the Raiders Monday night, and that's possible. Tampa would still have a 1-game lead.
And then on Sunday Night Football, another big one: the Packers at Seattle. Packers are about 2.5, and they are the unlikely favorite in this spot, as far as we're concerned, because Seattle's won their last 4 since the bye, all straight up ATS's dogs. They did get their right tackle back after the bye to get some continuity there. They didn't need Kenneth Walker last week. Charbonnet came in and had a monster game. Green Bay has covered 10 straight versus NFC West teams, and they're 3-0 this year against all 3 NFC West teams they've played. Seattle, meanwhile, is 14-3 against the spread in their last 17 versus teams with a 500 or greater record in the NFC, but they're 0-1 in that spot this year. So what do you guys think about this really good Sunday Night Football matchup?
I told you there was a B play.
Oh, so we've got mystery man number 3.
Seattle is the B play.
Seattle, Mr.
He must have gotten a +3.
Yeah.
Okay.
+3.
Down a little bit. I'm going back and forth in this game. I'd like to take Green Bay. When you look at who Seattle has beaten in the streak, they won that late game at the 49ers when 49ers still had some injuries. They beat the Cardinals twice, and then they beat the Jets coming from behind as they did a week ago heading into this game. When I look at Green Bay and their schedule recently, I look at the fact that their losses lately at the Lions, they did beat Miami, previously beat the 49ers and the Bears, and they had lost to the Lions in between. There was a 3-game winning streak sandwiched around losses to the Lions. So the fact that Seattle has had that record against winning teams is a bit of a concern. But also take a look at the fact that what'd you say? The Packers are 3-0 against the NFC West this year, and I think that tells you a lot about the mediocrity in the NFC West. When you look at Seattle's record against teams outside their division, I'm not quite sure what their record is, but I know they have a couple of wins outside there. The Jets being one of them, for example. I think the price is short enough to go with Green Bay here. Not sure. I don't know that I would lay 3, but at 2.5, I would certainly consider them. Oh, and by the way, Seattle would be another team to hook in that teaser. I think we may have mentioned that a little earlier when we touched upon this game before.
Yes, we did. I think we did. Yeah.
All right, Monday night, we've got a couple of snoozers: Chicago at Minnesota and Atlanta at Las Vegas. I don't think anybody's going to be watching Monday Night Football this Monday night. Anyway, Chicago 12-1-1 against the spread versus winning division opponents off a double-digit win, and they're 1-0-1 in that roll this year. So that's a good roll for Chicago. Meanwhile, Minnesota, don't forget about that overtime win they had over the Bears just a few weeks ago. That was a crazy ending. It was the first time we saw a onside kick attempt that came through. Bears got it to overtime, and then Caleb Williams decided to be Caleb Williams in overtime.
And remember, they needed a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to get to the overtime late in that game.
So Minnesota, a heavy favorite. Meanwhile, Las Vegas is the dog here. They've lost 9 straight. Atlanta 0-4, straight up ATS last 4. Las Vegas is 2-14 against the spread at home versus losing NFC opponents, and 0-1 in that role this year when they lost earlier this season to Carolina when Andy Dalton came in off the bench for the first time to relieve Bryce Young in his first start of the season. And of course, we know what happened a few weeks later. Bryce Young came back, and now he's playing super football. But what do you guys think about these Monday night games?
That Raiders win, the Raiders loss to the Panthers came after they pulled off that very late comeback win in Baltimore.
So what do you guys think about either of these games you think are worth taking?
I got to figure out that there's got to be something better that I could do with my life than watching.
There might be some college basketball games on a Monday night.
How about if I just watch a movie or go out with my wife?
You could do that, Jim. Yeah. You could do that.
There's got to be something better than to watch either.
You could walk the dog.
I will walk the dog. Yeah.
Give him a long.
Usually we do that in the morning.
Yeah. You could watch one of Sunday's games with a replay with your wife and surprise her by knowing every play that's going to happen at critical times, and she'll think you're a genius. And I think we're going to get.
Let me ask you this question: which dog do you trust the most to win the game outright? Chicago or Las Vegas?
I say Raiders.
Yeah. I actually like Chicago here. I expect a much better effort out of them, considering the new coach last week. And I think they want Thomas Brown to get the head coaching job. They played well for him when he was the offense. Well, not if they have another repeat, but if they come out and win their last 3-4 games, he might.
No. Chicago's giving that job to someone with a big name.
Well, it won't be Belichick. We know that now.
That's true. Caleb Williams.
I hope I'm not sleeping through the Atlanta Vegas game because I'm going to be at that game. So I'd like to at least. I may not be able to fall asleep.
How many games do you get to a year?
This will be it this year.
Oh, first game.
Yeah. First game, yeah.
Did you go to any college games?
Not this year, no. I enjoy both. I don't enjoy going to games as much as I used to because of everything you have to put up with to get there and leave. But
what's the quarterback situation for the Raiders, Andy?
I think Ritter's going to start again.
Okay.
Yeah, is O'Connell out for the year?
I don't know. He's officially been ruled out, but I know he's out for this game.
Yeah.
Didn't he play for Atlanta before? So maybe I
bingo.
Think yeah. So I don't know who has the.
I'm going to give it to my old former team.
Yeah, well, either that or they know his tendencies, which is why Atlanta is his former team. I can't lay points with Atlanta. It may be an entertaining game here, given the fact that both teams have struggled, Raiders especially on defense. So maybe I look over the total, but then I take a look at these teams. Atlanta's turned it over 20 times. That's 26 in the league. And who's last in the league? The Raiders with 25 turnovers, and neither defense is averaging even 1 turnover force per game. So we might. I'm almost making a case for the under because I'm almost suggesting that some of these drives, because they have a tendency to turn over, how long do we go before we see one of those turnovers? Maybe after a team gains 60 yards and the turnover finally.
How long do we go before Cousins goes on the bench and they bring the kid in?
I keep wondering that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Morris still is committed to Cousins. I think they have to stay with him as long as they are in playoff contention because of the experience. I don't know that you want to throw Penix into his first action playing a game that is much more meaningful in week 15 or 14, 15 or 16 than it would be if they put him in weeks 3 or 4.
Well, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign.
But I would make the choice to put him in there and say this team needs a spark considering about their recent play.
One thing that has changed with them in the last 2 weeks, they went through the whole year without being able to get any pressure on quarterbacks.
Yeah,
but the last 2 weeks they've been able to get. They've gotten sacks the last 2 games. Yeah. They did make a change on defense to do that.
Yeah, well, they had the bye, so that probably gave them the time.
They're going against the familiar. And they're going against a familiar quarterback, so we may say that 3 straight times from Atlanta.
All right, so there you go.
It's not a game I'll be betting because I will have a rooting interest, but I'm not sure if I want to root for the Raiders to win or for the Raiders to hold on to that number 1 draft choice.
Yeah, I mean that's again. I think everybody. It's the worst kept secret in town that it looks like if the Raiders are the number 1 pick, they're going to go with Sanders. And tell you the truth, I'm not so sure any other team would pick Sanders in the top 3 anyway. So as long as the Raiders were one of those top 3 picks, they're probably going to get him. So not sure if he's going to work out, but again,
would you consider Hunter because of also the need for a wide receiver?
Well, I would consider him, but the problem is, I'm just saying that he just seems to have this infatuation about the kid, Sanders. Yeah. And they need a quarterback.
Hey, maybe Deion's the coach here next year.
Maybe Deion is the coach here next year. That is a definite possibility because we know Pierce ain't going to be. So, all right.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up. And by the way, Andy wanted to know because we had just the 3 of us, he was wondering if there wasn't going to be enough time. He's wondering the show's going to be real fast. Well, this was the longest show we've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's been over 2 hours and 10 minutes. And that's going to wrap it up. So next week, when Mark returns and everybody else returns, we're going to start the show with our playoff preview. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Even Jim is going to have input on.
You're going to talk about the college football playoff.
College football playoff preview. That's going to be on the show next week. Don't forget to tune in though on Friday.
I already gave you a play.
That's right.
Clemson to win straight up.
Okay.
Mr. D, I guess, will be on that one. We haven't mentioned him.
Yeah, you can hold off that one because they won't play before we're on the air again next week.
That's right.
And then you got to give us your championship pick next week, Jim. Can you do that?
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that one.
Okay. So take a look at the futures. We'll have future plays, but don't forget also to tune in on Friday because Jim and I will return with Mark Lawrence just like we did last Friday. So maybe we'll have some time to talk about a few other things in college football, NFL, of course. And then Jim will have
Army, Navy.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can talk about that. Jackson State, South Carolina State for SWAC title runner.
And then Jim will be back to give his final thoughts on the week. That is going to be available. That's available at Thursday.
I do that on Saturday because I get the final injury reports on Friday.
And Jim and I will be doing our Saturday NFL coverage as well for the same reason.
When will that be posted? Saturday night? Evening?
No, that'll be posted Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
And
I think I do that around 10 o'clock in the morning.
And that's on the YouTube channel,
our
right?
video.
Is that on the YouTube?
Everything is here at ProLine TV. That's the only place you can find it. And that's why you need to subscribe. And also, again, check out for not only these videos coming up, but we're going to have our horse racing show on Friday. So we're going to have more picks this week. I don't know where we're doing races. Maybe Gulfstream Park might be some of the races we're going to take care of on Friday. But enjoy the week and the rest of the week in the NFL and college football. And then we'll have everybody back next week. So, guys, appreciate it as always.
It was fun.
It's always fun.
Absolutely
Andy,
fun.
thank you.
And they're on their own for the Salute to Veterans bowl game that we have this Saturday to kick things off.
The Salute to the Veterans Bowl game.
I think that used to be called the Camellia Bowl. It's in Montgomery, Alabama.
South Alabama, and Western
and
Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and then we have a couple of midweek games next week. I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we have total, including UNLV next Wednesday.
Is Odom's gone, right?
We do have to start thinking about basketball.
Yeah,
that's January.
I mean, that is out there.
We'll be talking college hoops here in January, and that'll be for 3 months plus into the Final Four starting in January. So check us out here, of course, for that. And I know Andy's going to be talking a lot of college basketball too. So will Tony Mejia. So we're going to have, so Jim, you and I won't be the only ones doing videos here on the channel much longer. We're going to get Andy and Tony to start chipping in. And also maybe update everybody with what's going on, because there's some activity in Major League Baseball with signings and things of that nature.
Oh my God, the money they're spending for these players.
I heard today Crochet is going to the Red Sox. Max Fried now is with the Yankees. Soto, of course, is with the Mets. And they still think they have money to get Pete Alonso back, which would be, you had Judge Soto with the Yankees. Now you would have Alonso Soto with the
But that owner for the Mets is he really wants to win. He's not fooling around.
He's in a tough division with Atlanta and the Phillies.
Yeah.
Yep. So you got to spend money. There's no salary cap. You got a luxury tax. Yeah. Boo-hoo. So
to him, the luxury tax is what you tip a bellman or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that is going to wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week.
Okay.